This is an article by a couple of my friends. I'm basically just going to slowly read it without much comments. I was going to read it anyway, so I thought I'll just read with everybody else. And maybe if something, come to my mind, I'll say it. Otherwise, I'll just basically try to read it slowly. Hopefully, it will be helpful in understanding the article and the issues it raises. So it's about Pakistan's economy, stabilizing the economy and Islamic revolutionary approach and objectives. This essay seeks to do three things: analyze Pakistan's current macroeconomic situation, assess the proposed reform plan of capitalist neoclassical government and neo-colonial government, that is, government of Pakistan. Number three, present an outline of an Islamic revolutionary alternative to capitalist macro management strategies. Okay, so let's start with the first one, which is about the macroeconomic situation in Pakistan. Okay, so Pakistan macroeconomic structure is dualistic. In the sense that there's a large self-sustaining domestic sector which has weak links to global capitalism, and although it is subordinated to the national capitalist sector or state, this subordination is very relatively weak. There is a large self-sustaining domestic sector with weak links to global capitalism, ineffectively subordinated to the national capitalist state. Obviously, the Pakistani state is a capitalist state, although neo-colonial capitalist state, so a capitalist state whose main purpose is not the capitalist well-being of its own people, but serving the capitalist need of the capitalist system and its centers. It amounts to between 40 to 50% of gross national value. Estimates vary on annual basis. So that's a large. So 40 to 50% economy is self-sustaining, roughly, and it has weak links to the global capitalist system, and its subordination to the Pakistani state is weak as well. So that's very good news, because that's the economy which actually shields the people from total misery, which the capitalist imperialist masters and their agents are trying to inflict on the people of Pakistan. A large proportion of the semi-integrated sector is undocumented, informal, but it also contains all those business and economic activities which are focused on servicing domestic demand. So most of the domestic, so the focus of this economy is domestic, so related to the basic needs of the people in terms of food and other things. This sector is relatively insulated from the deepening global capitalist recession because it is not subordinated to the capitalist state. Precisely that's why it is insulated. And that's why we need to keep it separate from the capitalist framework and make it stronger and make it self-consciously anti-capitalist. So that's the task. Okay. As compared to this informal sector, the formal economy, that is, which is consisting of government, defense, and financial network and large-scale manufacturing, this is the formal economy, is intentionally subordinated to global capitalist states and markets. It is this formal sector and not the semi-capitalist sector, which we talked about before, which is engulfed in crisis. So this is because there is a crisis in global capitalism. So the part of economy which is subordinated to that global capitalist economy is in crisis as well. And obviously, whenever there's a crisis of global capitalism, they try to spread that crisis to the peripheries as much as possible. So periphery is obviously periphery like Pakistan. They are obviously affected negatively by any capitalist crisis which reaches them more than the center of capitalist economies. The crisis of capitalist sector is a crisis of indebtedness, especially foreign indebtedness. A capitalist sector of Pakistan, I guess. The official reserves have effectively fallen to zero as they consist entirely of loans from China and the remainder from global multinational and private banks. Pakistan's euro bonds are currently trading at less than 1/3 of face value with an average coupon rate of about 17% and still very low demand. Both Moody's and Fitch have downgraded Pakistan's rating and foreign portfolio investment in negative. In fiscal year 2023, Pakistan needs about 12 billion to meet debt servicing charges and other foreign obligations. So, Pakistani state, as far as it is subordinated to capitalist system, is in a deep crisis, and because of its subordination, not in spite of. Okay. I actually didn't record the last bit, so I don't know where did I stop recording, but I'll just go through it again. Mr. Dar is seeking a costly rescheduling of non-Paris Club debt to 27 billion and has repeatedly ruled out the possibility of default or seeking reduction to the debt. 27 billion. So obviously, a default would be a revolutionary strategy, and you can't expect a revolutionary action from these governments, which are the agents of the imperialists. So Pakistan's external debt is about 133 billion, about 76% of current GDP. Obviously, this excludes the, I think that exclude the informal economy. The rupee has suffered accelerated depreciation since 2019 when the ongoing IMF program came into effect and the rupee was subjugated to the global economic market pressure. Imran Khan's government denationalized SBP in 2018 and handed over its control to global money markets and IMF. So, I mean, Imran Khan's government has been one of the worst in terms of economic policy and other policies in terms of its subservience to the imperialists. But still, some people think that he was a revolutionary, or he is a revolutionary, which tells you about the mental capacity and the vision of those people. The first macroeconomic agreement was signed with the IMF by Ayub Khan's government in 1958. So this subservience to IMF is not new. From the period 1958 to 2022, there have been 22 such agreements. And the purpose of agreement is to keep Pakistani economy subservient to the imperialist interests, which are not the interests of the Pakistani economy or the Pakistani people. And the governments are the agents of the imperialists, which actually, perform this subjugation in different way. The IMF agreement have depressed growth, which makes it difficult to repay debts. So you have to reschedule it, but rescheduling is done by giving more concession to the imperialists. A stifled investment, and this obviously only helps the interests of global capital, not the Pakistani economy. Fueled structural economic deformities and catastrophically increase both domestic and foreign indebtedness, because indebtedness is directly proportional to the political and economic subjugation to the imperialist, and increases your vulnerability to the vulnerability of the state to the imperialist order. So that's the basic function of indebtedness. So the IMF agreements have depressed growth, stifled investment, fueled structural economic deformities, and catastrophically increased both domestic and foreign indebtedness of the government and of the private capitalist sector. So this is the situation, okay? In the context of this situation, we'll see what is the capitalist response, the response of the Pakistani government, and then we'll see what should be our response. Okay, so let's stop here then.